I'm Dr. Duke with The New American, and today I'm joined by Gabe Gutenberger, a certified firearms tech trainer, right? You train people how to responsibly use guns. Thanks for joining us today, Gabe.
Thank you very much.
And tell the people a little bit about your background. You've worn many hats in your career.
Yes, I have. I've been a certified firearms instructor for almost 10 years since Wisconsin made concealed carry legal. Before that, for the previous 12 or so, I've been in emergency response as a firefighter and emergency medical first responder. I also work in the safety field in construction and worked in the field as a construction worker before that.
And you've done a lot of work with crisis response, right?
Yes, definitely.
And so what is the company you're currently working for as a licensed firearm trainer?
It is Armed Citizens Network of Wisconsin, ACNOW, kind of act now if needed. It is a very quick response that we are training for to be able to defend our lives and those of the people we love.
One of our good friends, is the chairman of Delta Defense. It's really interesting. They provide, like you would provide car insurance for car drivers, providing gun insurance for people who own guns, so that if they ever have to pull their weapon, they will, for a legitimate reason, and the government comes after them, they're going to have insurance that will pay for the entire defense, which is kind of a neat idea.
Yes. And as we teach in our classes, my wife is also a certified instructor, and we teach together as a pair. We talk about defending life with the firearm, but also needing to do it as judiciously as possible to defend our freedoms. And if there are charges brought, we definitely need to defend our finances, and that's where organizations like that for concealed carry insurance would come into play.
So what made you, after a career being a firefighter, first responder, EMT, what made you gravitate into this particular field, gun safety and gun training?
Well, everything about what I do right now is preservation of life. Whether it's my full-time day job as a safety manager, a safety and education manager, or as a volunteer firefighter with a couple thousand calls worth of experience. I'm in the first one, my day job, I'm trying to prevent incidents from occurring, if possible, do as much to influence people in that way. As a firefighter and EMS responder, I'm there after the fact to pick up the pieces and try to keep it from getting worse. In the firearms arena, what it is kind of a combination of both, because as the Second Amendment allows us to uninhibited carry and possess firearms to defend our lives, it is a preemptive reaction. So if by some horrible chance I am attacked and my life is threatened, I have the tooling and the knowledge and experience to be able to use that equalizer to gain the upper hand over the opportunistic resource predator, the one who wants to take what is mine and not theirs.
I'm always amazed at how the anti-gun media and the anti-gun politicians, they fail to credit how many crimes are stopped, how many incidents are cut off because of responsible concealed carry gun owners, things that don't become much worse. We never want to talk about that because of the agenda, of course, is getting rid of guns for everybody. I imagine that, and you can sort of confirm or deny this, that in this time of uncertainty, lockdown, and now rioting, guns have become a pretty big ticket. I mean, people are buying guns left and right.
Oh, absolutely. My wife and I just recently acquired the federal firearms license, so we can buy and sell guns the same as a big box store. And our small side business has just gone through the roof with COVID lockdowns and the uncertainty and unrest of that. And now with the rioting, we're seeing a dramatic increase in the number of people signing up for our classes and also reaching out to us to purchase firearms.
You know, I saw a statistic just today, over 6 million guns sold since the COVID virus broke. 4 or 5 months, which seems to, I think it's a record for that time period. And so talk a little bit about this for us. A lot of people are proficient with guns. They're allowed, they have permits and training to handle guns. Why should people take the extra step with concealed carry? How would you explain the need or the usefulness of going that one further step?
Having the tool when you need it is definitely the right thing to do. As a fellow who drives a lot, I wear my seatbelt. I have a fire extinguisher in my vehicle. I don't wait until I crash, or I believe I'm going to crash, to go find a fire extinguisher or to put on my seatbelt. So carrying a firearm for me is that preemptive insurance, if you will. of having the right equipment there to have the upper hand if someone else tries to take advantage of me or mine.
I always thought it was interesting and unfortunate. I'm a university professor, and everybody in the world knows there are no guns on that campus. Even though Wisconsin is a concealed carry state, you're not allowed to have guns. The Brahmins of the university say we're going to ignore the state law, and you can't have them here. Even though, ironically, universities are state institutions. Yes. You would think that, and say like with a lot of the state police forces, you would think that state institutions would be required to follow state law on these issues, but they don't. And maybe that's the reason why you oftentimes see schools shot up and universities shot up by madmen, and you don't often see that happening to places where concealed carry is allowed.
Yes, exactly. And Heritage.org did an independent study of mass shootings between 2002 and 2000, I believe it was 17 or 18. And out of the 54 shootings they were able to study, 37 of them happened in places like that university, where firearms are not allowed to be carried by the average citizen. So out of 54, 37 happened where firearms are prohibited, and the 17 remaining happened where firearms were allowed. What's most interesting is that out of those 17, the smaller number, 5 out of 17, nearly a third of them were stopped by armed civilians.
Right.
Before the shooter ran out of bullets, took his own life, or law enforcement arrived. 2 out of the 37 were stopped by armed civilians, but they had to go to their vehicles, retrieve a firearm, and then illegally go back into that facility to stop the madman.
And one wonders, I mean, you may know the answer to this, I could absolutely see zealous law enforcers thanking the man who gets his gun and stops the shooter and then arresting him for bringing a gun on, right? That kind of thing is sadly very believable in this day and age. How's business going for you? What are you seeing in your personal business training people to conceal carry? Are the numbers up?
The numbers are through the roof, quite frankly. We, a week and a half ago, set up a class that we max out at 40 to try to keep as much personal interaction as possible for June 13th. That class filled up in about 5 to 7 days. So I set up another class for the 20th, a week later. And that one filled in 22 hours, full 40 people. So on my way home tonight, I'm going to be looking for another building to set up another class just to try to keep up with the demand for those who are recognizing the need to have that firearm and carry it with them. Not just have it in a safe in the basement, but actually have it ready and available for if something happens.
What do you say? Let me play devil's advocate for a moment. What would you say to me if I was a virtue signaling anti-Second Amendment person? You know, when you put the universities put those big signs up, it's virtue signaling. Right. You can have a policy keeping guns off without boasting to the people who might want to shoot people at every building that you can't have a gun in here. If I'm that kind of a person, somebody who is staunchly anti-Second Amendment and wanting to shut down the rights of other people to carry or even own guns, what would be your response to me? How might you try to get me to see the light?
Well, the Second Amendment was written back in 1791 with the purpose of allowing us as citizens to be trained and ready to form into a militia. That's what the well-regulated means. We can't be regulated if we don't already have some knowledge and understanding. So the basics of firearms ownership is definitely there as a preemptive
fundamental
setting.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So if you are against the firearms ownership and maybe are against taking of life, there are many different directions we could go down to find the root of those issues. However, let's look at, back to your question, the basics of how many people are shot in places where they cannot defend themselves. The mass shooters, the madmen who shot up that theater in Colorado, chose to go to the only place that had a sign posted. These signs, these policies are magnets for those people who really want to cause as much damage as possible without being able to be stopped by people like us who carry to defend our lives.
Right, and you see big cities like Chicago that have some of the most restrictive gun ownership burdens, almost contrary to the Second Amendment, and the gun violence there is staggering. I mean, they know that the average citizen's not going to have guns. The thugs, the criminals know that. And everybody, it's a big it's not a big secret, and so the gun violence is absolutely through the roof. Concealed carry. I mean, 10 years ago we passed it in the state of Wisconsin. It was controversial, wasn't it?
Oh, yes, it was.
You were living in Wisconsin then.
Yes, I was.
Tell me a little bit about the situation 10 years ago when this was we were debating whether we were going to pass this or not.
Well, as with any firearms debate. It's a very polarized issue. People who don't believe in the taking of life in defense of life, or even the risk of that. And Wisconsin was one of the last states in the nation to even come to an agreement on what sort of concealed carry law we might be able to come up with. And I believe that they've done a fairly good job as a first step toward going back to the Second Amendment,
right,
which really says that it shall not be infringed.
Right.
And so, therefore, constitutional carry is what we really should be pushing toward. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
The fact that we have to go to legislatures and try to get governors and senators and state legislators to agree to pass concealed carry demonstrates that the right has already been significantly infringed.
That is correct, yes.
And so when it finally went through, what did you think of the immediate media reaction to Wisconsin becoming a concealed carry state?
Oh, it was crazy.
Over the top.
Oh, very much so. People thinking that it was going to be the wild, wild west, shootouts in the streets. We were, I believe, the 47th or 48th state in the nation to pass concealed carry. There weren't shootouts in the streets in the other states, so I wouldn't understand why it would be different here.
Wisconsin has a reputation duly earned for being a drunken state, right?
Yes,
so maybe they figured with all that beer and all those guns. But again, 10 years of concealed carry in Wisconsin, and there hasn't been almost a single problem, has there?
Very, very few. There have been a couple rare instances of hotheads being ridiculous with their right and harming people. But it has been such a small percentage and speaks in Wisconsin to the same nationwide statistics that concealed carry licensees are more law-abiding than even law enforcement officers or certainly members of Congress and Senate.
Well, they'd almost have to be, wouldn't they? I mean, they're under such scrutiny. I mean,
yes.
You know, and I'm sure when a police officer pulls somebody over and they know they can tell they're a concealed carry person, right?
Actually, in Wisconsin, the list of concealed carry licensees is incredibly well protected.
It is. Oh, that's good. I did not know that.
Yes.
And in a lot of states, it's not.
That is correct as well. But
what kind of protections in Wisconsin?
In Wisconsin here, a law enforcement officer cannot ask for a concealed carry license, even if you have one, unless they have reasonable and articulable suspicion that a license is needed, such as in a school zone, or if they can tell that I am concealing a firearm.
Right. So if they saw a gun in the glove box or something, the doors, then they could ask you.
Correct, yes.
And so you do carry a gun with you in your car, you mentioned.
Yes, as often as I legally can, I do carry a personal defense firearm with me.
Just out of curiosity, how does that work statewide? If you were going to drive from Wisconsin into Illinois or Indiana, for instance, would it depend on the state before you? Every state's different, right?
Yes, just like driving laws. If I go from Wisconsin into Minnesota and the speed limit drops down, I have to follow the Minnesota speed limit.
Right.
If I drive from Wisconsin into Michigan, I now have to follow the Michigan laws when it comes to firearms and the use of them.
So your Wisconsin concealed carry license is not going to save you if you get pulled over with a gun in Michigan?
Depending on which laws you may or may not have similar between Wisconsin and Michigan.
Well, I firmly believe that more people and more young people should be trained to use guns and demystify them a little bit, make them less exotic and less curious, give people that. I'd love to see a course in mandatory firearm safety in every high school. That would be a great thing. But talk to the audience briefly. If they sign up with you for a concealed carry course, what kind of things would they expect would go on?
Well, we break our class into 4 segments. The first hour or so out of the 5-hour class, first hour is on the basics of firearms, how they function, what different ones are called, the parts and pieces, etc. Then after a short break, we talk for about an hour on the techniques, tips and tricks, how to shoot more accurately, how to clear malfunctions. My wife talks for a while about the different holster options, how to safely and securely hold that firearm on body without causing harm to me as the carrier. Then we talk for roughly an hour or so on the judicious or legal use of deadly force, when to use the gun, and most importantly, when to not use that firearm. And the last hour is on a lot of the laws pertaining to carry, the places you can carry, talking about reciprocity, going across state lines and following different rules, traveling by air, flying with a firearm, how to legally and safely do so, the no gun signs, and businesses exercising their right, their property right, to prohibit the carrying of firearms on their properties. But then we also talk, specific to Wisconsin, about the liability exemptions by allowing people to carry. How there cannot be liability held against me as a business owner if I allow you to bring your firearm in and you are still somehow hurt.
Right.
But if I prohibit you from doing so, then I take on some of that
see.
potential liability for your safety.
It's a really interesting question. So give us one more time. If people are looking to get in touch with you to set up trainings or to participate in them, talk about how they can do that.
Just send an email to me at gabe@acnow.us. We also have a Facebook page. Just do a search for ACNOW. And our website is www.acnow.us.
And I think I would be really remiss in the 3 minutes or so that we have left if I didn't ask you a little broader question. So here we are. We had the lockdown, which freaked people out, kept people off the streets. Made them a little paranoid, I would imagine. And now you've got a situation where you've got these active riots going on. You've got protests and you've got riots, serious riots going on. As a first responder, somebody who would have been called in first, not necessarily as a police officer, but as a fireman and other EMT, I look around and I see these police officers being sent to the front lines and then told to do nothing. And so that's got to be incredibly psychologically difficult. How would you have handled that back when you were a first responder, or what advice can you give to people who find themselves in a situation like that when they have a sworn duty to uphold the law and they're being told by their mayors or their governors, let rioters break the law?
It is a very difficult situation, and my opinion in this case would be that we have to encourage the law enforcement profession to be professional in how they respond to it. Unfortunately, we have a view of conflicting rights in this case. The First Amendment, the right to freedom of speech, the freedom to assemble and to express their views and opinions. But we also have the personal responsibilities to make sure that we're doing so in a safe manner that respects the rights of another human being to their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So it definitely puts us as emergency responders in a tough spot. I can just imagine being sent to a fire, going to your home and watching the flames come out of the first story windows and being told, no, stay by the truck because that's where you got to stay.
Right.
I understand and I empathize with law enforcement and being judged by the actions of one and being grouped together as if they are all condoning it.
To me, it's almost medieval. It's almost like you're asking the police, because of what this one cop in Minnesota did, you're asking police in all the major cities of this country to stand there and suffer your punishment, right?
Yes.
Take it. Take the bottles, take the rocks, take the spitting, take the cursing, and stand by and watch as people are being beaten right in front of you, where talk about the First Amendment, where news people are being arrested, are driven off the streets and threatened and bullied on the street by rioters. It's really a crazy situation. We got about 40 seconds left. Again, I wanted to give us your last word on gun safety for people out there, and tell them again, if they're interested in classes, where they can go.
Yeah, the whole point of firearm safety is for me to carry something that I can defend my life with if someone should try to take it from me. God gave me the right and responsibility to protect my family, and I choose to do so with the Second Amendment as the guarantee of that right to carry that firearm on my person, to be prepared to respond. And if you want to know more about this, check out our website, www.acnow.us, our Facebook page, just search for ACNOW, or send me an email at gabe@acnow.us.
Gabe Gutenberger, thanks for your time today.